Hi, my name is Dot. I'm a dog used in movies and TV. That might sound exciting, but I'd do anything to have a family like a normal dog. Instead, I live here. My story really starts a few years ago. From the time I was a puppy, I lived with Earl. But one day he fell and never got up. So I was brought to a shelter where I stayed for months. I started to worry if I would ever have another home. One day, a man visited. He pointed at me and asked how old I was. He left and came back with a crate. I was going home with him. I would have a family. On the ride to my new home, I met Charlie. Charlie told me Otto got him from a different shelter. He said he never had a home. I told him how great it was and the fun stuff you do with guardians. Going for walks, playing with toys at the park, and just being loved. Charlie got really excited. Then Otto smacked the side of his crate and told him to shut up. That's when I knew something was wrong. The place Otto took us to didn't look much like a home. There were cages with different kinds of animals and fences everywhere. Everyone looked so sad. Otto carried us in our crates to a shed. It was filled with dogs and crates. He stacked us on top and walked away without saying anything. A dachshund underneath me overheard. She said Otto trains animals for movies and TV. We have to do what he says, and he gets paid by the movie people. He'll bring you to big sets and act really nice in front of everyone, but you'll get in a lot of trouble afterwards if you mess up. I asked if there was any playing. Walks, belly rubs, anything nice? No, not really, she said. Charlie began to panic, and so did I. After a noisy and sleepless night, Otto woke Charlie and I up early in the morning and put collars around our necks. It was time to start training. Charlie started to run, but Otto screamed at him, and Charlie got scared and stopped. We got in a lot of trouble if we didn't do what Otto wanted. And what he wanted was confusing. We had to do it over and over and over. Or we were stuck in kennels outside without anything. Every night, I missed laying on a warm bed next to Earl. One day, my kennel door didn't lock, so I went exploring. I met all sorts of animals, a fox, a raccoon, and a horse named Buck. Buck told me about growing up on movie sets. His stories were terrifying. Loud noises all around him, being stuck in his trailer for days, heavy men riding on him and hurting his back for hours. When he was young, they trained him with a whip to make him do the tricks. Crack to go fast, crack to jump. I came across a cage that had a cat in it. Her name was Tanya. She was kept in a cage all the time. She was starving. Otto said she wasn't skinny enough to be in a movie, so they stopped feeding her. I wondered if all the animals had it this bad. Then I met a bear named Shelly, who told me she had a baby named Little Ben. She said Otto took him away from her and keeps him in a cage inside the house and that she never gets to see him. But Buck already told me the truth. Little Ben died, and he was buried in the yard. A few weeks later, Otto gathered several of us up and put us in the back of his truck. We were going to a movie set. There were people everywhere, and it was really overwhelming. We weren't allowed to make any noise. We waited in our crates almost all day until it was our turn. They dressed me and Charlie in things that made it hard to run and see. I knew they wanted us to get to the other side of the fence, but they would get mad when we went around it to get there. Otto didn't yell, but I could tell he wanted to. His face turned so red. Eventually, I realized I was supposed to jump over the fence, but it didn't make any sense to me. Charlie couldn't jump over the fence. He was too weak, and he seemed sick. Otto squeezed Charlie hard and lifted him over the fence to show him what to do. He then shouted, "Jump!" Charlie couldn't do it, so they replaced him with another dog. I knew when we went home, we were going to be in big trouble. After that, I was lucky if I'd have any days out of my kennel. Charlie just kept getting sicker and sicker until one day, he was just gone. It wasn't unusual for things like that to happen. Buck told me it could be a lot worse. He told me that sometimes animals were sent to roadside zoos, which are even more terrible than here. He said there was a chimpanzee named Frank, who was taken from his mom when he was a baby. When he grew up and got strong, they sent him off to a roadside zoo because they were afraid he'd become too aggressive. He said that Otto would get rid of any animals that were no longer of use to him. The bad days just continued. Animals came and went. Then one day, they took Buck to a movie set, but he didn't come back. They said he broke his leg and it was too expensive to fix. Every day, I dream about a family coming and taking me away so I can live a life like I used to have. But this is my life now. I'm a dog in movies and TV. This is my story. Animals are not actors. Please avoid shows and movies that use animals. If you see an animal being used for a film or TV show, report it to PETA by calling the whistleblower hotline at 323-210-2233 or go to PETA.org/report. Thanks for watching.